Hey, good morning to everybody. Happy Thursday. It's Daryl here. It's bright and freaking early, man. It's 3 a.m. here in Connecticut on the East Coast. Today, I want to talk about this person called JELLYROLL and everything that he talked about in front of Congress. I've never heard of this guy before today. Before I get into that, there's things. I'm a recovering addict. I have over 17 years clean and sober. I've been clean and sober since October 23rd of 2006. The purpose of this video is to tell you guys that recovery is possible. The last 17 years have been the best of my life, the most profitable, the most enjoyable, the most social, the most motivated, the most healthy I've ever been in my 58 years on this earth. And recovery is possible. That's the point of this video. I don't know if I'm going to be able to download this video onto Artist and Recovery. I have two channels, Artist and Recovery, and that's a monetized channel that has advertising that I get paid for. And then I have a secondary channel called Staying Clean. And yesterday, there's things I need to talk about. And I know that I'm going to get yellow lighted. Yellow lighted means that I talked about things that means that they can't put advertising on this particular video. If I talk about violence or certain groups, certain things that have happened through history, certain things that people find that don't go along with advertising, I'll get yellow lighted and I won't have advertising. So more and more I've had to put videos onto my Staying Clean channel, and I think I might have to do it with this video. That's the whole point of what I'm saying here. Okay, I watched JELLYROLL, this country rap singer, talking in front of Congress. And my first impression is that I'm happy. I'm glad that people are realizing what's going on. They're actually doing something. There's certain things that JELLYROLL's talked about in this video. I'll have the link down below so you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Put the video right down below. This country rap singer testified in front of Congress. They're passing anti-fentanyl legislation that affects China and Mexico as far as banking and the money aspect, the money laundering aspect of fentanyl coming into the country. Okay, that's just the gist of it. That's the way I understand it. And I have a problem with this. I do. I'm glad that they're doing something about it. I can identify with a lot of things that JELLYROLL talked about, and I'm going to talk about that really quick in a second. But if you Google this, there's almost 1 million people addicted to fentanyl in this country right now. Okay, now say that you take away their drug. You say that you make it impossible for fentanyl to come into the country. What's going to happen? What are those almost 900,000 people are using fentanyl in this country right now, addicted to it? What are they going to do the next day? What do you think they're going to do? Are they going to just say, "Oh well, that's it. I guess I'm clean and sober"? No, they're not. And I know because I'll tell you exactly. I'm going to tell you exactly what I did. There's a couple of things he talked about. Okay, with fentanyl, all right, is the problem the drug coming into the country? Because I think it's easy for the government, legislature, country rap stars to point at a country and say that's the problem. Mexico's the problem. China's the problem. This is this poison's coming into the country, and if we stop it, we'll be fine. No, that's not the problem. The problem is addiction is the problem. There's a few things that JELLYROLL talked about. He was a dealer. I thought about this morning. I actually dealt. I'm not proud of this at all. I dealt black tar heroin back in the 90s, and I didn't even know it was black tar heroin. I went to an Aerosmith concert. I was using cocaine back in the 90s, and I went to an Aerosmith concert at Hartford, Connecticut. And we got out of the concert, and we were looking for cocaine. And I ran into somebody in the parking garage that said he could get, he called it raw opium. And he gave me his address, his phone number. And this is how it worked out. I would Western Union money. I was getting an ounce of black tar heroin from Arizona I would Western Union half the money, $60. It was $120 for an ounce of black tar heroin. And I would Western Union $60 to Arizona. And the next day, Federal Express through the mail, I would get an ounce of black tar heroin. And I made incredible amount of money selling this. And just until recently, I didn't even realize what I was dealing back then. You know, I thought he told me it was raw opium. And now that I look back, and now that I've actually seen black tar heroin and everything, I realized that I didn't even know what I was selling back then. Okay, like I said, it's easy to point out like China or Mexico is the problem. What I see here is what I'm worried about happening is I'm old enough to remember Nancy Reagan and to just say no. Just say no to drugs. That was the big thing. This is the answer. Nancy Reagan's going to do something about this. Just say no to drugs. And the first Bush president, the war on drugs, and where did it just got worse and worse and worse. And that's what I see happening here. The problem isn't fentanyl per se. The problem is addiction. If you take away fentanyl tomorrow from these million people, 900,000 people in this country that are using it right now. And let me tell you this, every day, those 900,000 people, they're addicts. And in order to get their drug, they're drawing in other people into it. Every single day, those addicts are making new addicts. They're looking for money, they're looking for ways to get the drug, and they're pulling in friends and family members in order to get money, in order to get the drugs. And they're creating new addicts, new people using these drugs. If you take away their drug tomorrow, it's not going to solve the problem. And I know myself, because I wrote this all down this morning. Back in high school, I started dealing marijuana. Sinsemelia, I think we used to call it. Green skunk bud, Thai stick, stuff like that. And the very first time I used cocaine, the guy I was getting the weed from didn't have the weed. He had some cocaine. And that's the first time I bought cocaine and tried cocaine. Okay. So I started using cocaine in my 20s. All right. When's the first time you think I ever used crack? When cocaine wasn't available. I swear to God, I still remember the very first time I used crack. We were out at night drinking, and we're trying to find cocaine. And one of the guys in the car said, "Hey, I can get something really good. It's cheap, $20, $10. It's great. We'll roll it into the." Very first time I smoked crack, we rolled it into a joint and smoked it. It wasn't like in a crack pipe, so it didn't look dangerous. It didn't look bad. This was back in like 1987, 88, maybe, just before the whole just at the beginning of the crack epidemic. And that's the first time I smoked crack, was because I couldn't get cocaine. The first time I used cocaine was because I used cocaine because I couldn't get marijuana. All right, now, very first time I used heroin, and this is all true. Very first time I used heroin, I was using crack all day. So I swear to God. And I went out at about 2 a.m. to the south end of a city near here, Waterbury, Connecticut. 2 a.m, and I was looking to buy some more crack. And and what do you think was out there? A heroin dealer. And I bought a $10 fold of heroin, white powder heroin. And that's the first time I ever used heroin, because I couldn't get the crack. You see where I'm going with this? If you take away fentanyl, JELLYROLL says something interesting here. He says he remembers back in the 90s when crack took over his area where he lives in the South. And he said back then he couldn't imagine that there'd be a drug that would come along that would make crack look like a walk in the park. When he couldn't imagine the wave of fentanyl, because he saw the crack epidemic. And what makes you think that that there's not going to, of course, there's going to be something else after this? Unfortunately, fentanyl is not going to be the end all be all of addictive drugs. There's going to be something else after this. Dealing with fentanyl, it's a start, but what you have to do is you have to treat addiction. That is the problem. Let me go on here. The very first time I used crystal meth, I was on a trip to California. to San Francisco, California. And I was a coke addict at that time. And I smoked crack. I was addicted to coke and crack. And I went to California, and I couldn't get either one. I couldn't find a dealer. The first couple of nights I was there, I was drinking, and I wanted the stuff so bad. What do you think I did? I started using crystal meth. First time I used crystal meth. When I got into treatment 17 years ago in the methadone clinic, I started taking methadone, and all of a sudden after 2 weeks, I kept buying heroin every day, even though the methadone was working, and I knew I didn't need it. The methadone was blocking the heroin, but every day I would still go out and spend $35 for like the first month, even though I knew it wasn't working. I still, the addiction in me, I kept buying heroin every day for no reason, just throwing away $35 and snorting heroin and staying dirty just because of addiction. You need treatment here. Okay, so once the methadone started working, I reverted back to crack cocaine. The methadone helped me start to overcome the cravings for heroin. And one of the first things I did, I started using crack. And now I almost got kicked out of the methadone program because and this happens with a lot of people that go into methadone. The problem is addiction. That's the problem. That's what you need to treat. You need to make sure that every addict in this country, if there's 1 million fentanyl addicts, there should be 1 million beds available. There should be treatment for 1 million people tomorrow. And if you really are serious about solving the problem of addiction, that's how you're going to have to do it. It's great that they notice this. It's great that JELLYROLL is talking about this and everything, but I could see that they're picking easier targets. They're picking the easy boogeyman. China, ooh, that's the problem. Mexico, that's the problem. Money, China, Mexico's the problem. No, that's really not the problem. The problem is addiction. That is the problem. If you take away fentanyl from these million addicts tomorrow, it's not going to stop the problem. As a matter of fact, those million addicts are going to become desperate. They are. And they're going to find any other opiate, and they're going to start using it by the handful to make up for the fentanyl. That's what happens when you don't deal with addiction and you just take away the drug of choice from an addict. They're going to revert to a similar drug. They're not just going to throw their hands up and say, "Oh, I'm getting clean now." So I admire JELLYROLL for talking about this, and I'm glad that the Congress realizes and is trying to do something. But it's going to be a lot harder. I really fear that this is just going to be another just say no to drugs, just another war on drugs kind of thing, because they're not looking at the actual problem of addiction here. Recovery is possible. Over 17 years clean and sober, since October 23rd, 2006. Recovery is possible. I'll say it again. Have a good Thursday.